It's a pleasure being part of this event and being in everyone's company today. So the title of my talk is Managing Cyber Risks During Times of Crisis. And the way I'm going to approach this talk is, one, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the National Cybersecurity Alliance, what we do, who we are, and an overview of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Then I'm going to highlight some of the tactics and themes that criminals are using to trick and steal from you during the many different times of crises. Then I'll discuss some ways you can reduce the chances of falling victim to cybercrime. And I'm going to break that up between tips for consumers and tips for businesses. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A and resources. So let's get started. So the National Cybersecurity Alliance is a nonprofit that builds strong public-private partnerships to create and implement broad-reaching education and awareness efforts to empower users at home, work, and school with the information they need to keep themselves and their organization safe and secure online, and to encourage a culture of cybersecurity. Let me figure out how to move my slides here. There we go. So tomorrow kicks off Cybersecurity Awareness Month. What a perfect time for this webinar. Held every October, Cybersecurity Awareness Month is a collaborative effort between government and industry to raise awareness about the importance of cybersecurity and to ensure that all Americans have the resources they need to be safer and more secure online. Now, the National Cybersecurity Alliance co-leads Cybersecurity Awareness Month with our federal partner, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. I know it's a mouthful. And the overarching theme for October this year is Do Your Part, Be Cyber Smart. Now, that theme empowers individuals and organizations to own their role in protecting their part of cyberspace. So if everyone does their part in implementing stronger security practices, raising community awareness, educating vulnerable audiences, and training their employees, our interconnected world will be safer and more resilient for everyone. Now, there's still time for organizations to get involved in Cybersecurity Awareness Month by signing up as a champion. And so it's free and fast, I promise you. The form is very short. And you'll receive a Champions Toolkit, which will make it easy for you and your marketing teams, if you have a marketing team, to promote cybersecurity awareness throughout October and beyond. You'll receive social media graphics, like the one I shared on the previous slide, sample posts, tips and ideas for raising awareness, a sample PowerPoint template. You'll be the first to receive new materials as they're released, and much more. And you can sign up to become a champion on the website or on the page listed on the slide here. So with that, let's go ahead and dig into our content. So organizations and individuals face all sorts of risks, right? It's just part of life. Competition, natural disasters, loss of critical employees, cyber threats, right? The list goes on. What's critical in that is how we prepare for and respond to those moments of uncertainty. For businesses, how you prepare for and respond could mean the difference between staying in business or not. For families, how you prepare for and respond to crises could impact the financial welfare of your family for better or worse. Now, I feel like this photo sums up 2020 and this topic of discussion quite nicely, right? 2020 has been generous in showcasing the full spectrum of threats that can face not only the business community, but all the world's citizens. We see fires ravaging Northern California. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is predicting 7 to 11 hurricanes this year, with three to 5 predicted to be very serious. We've seen social unrest across the globe, but particularly here at home. This is manifested in both peaceful and violent protests. Both have had an impact on the business community, with road closures, blocked access to the premises, right? Employee and customer safety and access, potential damage to the business. And of course, We have a global pandemic changing the way we not only do business, but the way we live our lives. And these are just a few examples of what we have seen in 2020 so far. And the year ain't over, folks, right? We still have plenty of time. But there is one threat that weaves itself through all of these other threats. And that is the threat of cyber incidents and cyber attacks. Cyber criminals prey upon fear. They prey upon confusion. They prey upon generosity. They prey upon curiosity. Their goal is to exploit vulnerabilities in technologies and in human behavior in any way they can to get what they want. And much of that exploitation of humans in particular happens by what is called social engineering. Now, scam artists are not new, right? This is an old occupation or hobby, however you want to classify it. But the mechanism is new. The internet. Threat actors don't change their tactics so much as they adjust to the changing times. And the age of the internet and our always connected society has made that much easier for them at scale. So with social engineering, they're leveraging tactics to trick human targets into disclosing credentials or sensitive information in some form or fashion, into infecting their computers with malicious software. They're tricking humans into opening infected sites. And they're tricking humans into gaining access to physical locations at many times, whether that be home or your business. So let me give you some examples from 2020 as far as how cyber criminals are using themes of crisis to take advantage of their targets. Phishing, right? One of National Cybersecurity Alliance's board member companies, KnowBe4, issued their Q1 phishing report this year, and the results found that phishing email attacks related to COVID-19 were up 600% in Q1 of 2020. Another study by CrowdStrike showed more intrusion attempts in the first 6 months of this year than on all of 2019. Their threat hunting team blocked around 41,000 potential intrusions just between January 1 and June 30th of this year. That's 41,000 in just January to June, compared with 35,000 in all of 2019. So why this increase, right? People were desperately seeking information. That's why we saw a lot of phishing emails and fake websites pretending to be the CDC or National Institutes of Health. There was a mass transition to telework during this time, creating all sorts of confusion and an increased threat surface for organizations. Criminals knew that people would be vulnerable, and phishing emails are an effective tool for criminals to take advantage of that vulnerability. Why? Because cyber criminals know email works. People click on links, whether it's in an email, a text message, or in a chat message. They click. Greater than 90% of cyber incidents begin with an email. It is the gift that keeps on giving for criminals, highlighting the human element of cybersecurity, because once those emails get through all of the fancy technologies that you've set up for your business to catch malicious emails, once that lands in the employee's inbox, it's up to them to decide whether or not to click that link. That's why cyber criminals often use this approach. So let me give you a specific example. So here's an actual example that Cofense Phishing Labs caught. Now, the criminal is relying on the emotional subject line to influence the reader to click on the HTML file in the email. Look at that language. One of your team members have been infected by the coronavirus. Regards, management. I love that part. They're preying on fear. Look at that subject line. They want the recipient to click on that attachment or that attached file so they can infect the computer. They're trying to scare the victim into acting. That's how they prey upon emotion. Another COVID-related phishing exploit that Cofense Labs found was one that said employees were being laid off and to click on the link from HR to learn more. I mean, that's low even for criminals, but they're doing it. So as you can see in this example, and there's so many like this, criminals are using a proven tactic, phishing, and theming them to take advantage of certain crises. So in the introduction, PPP was mentioned, right? Among the more persistent social engineering schemes being deployed by malicious actors are phishing emails that exploit the several financial programs offered by the US federal government to provide monetary relief to not only businesses, but to individuals. Every time there's a federal stimulus or relief package, there will always be criminals seeking to exploit it in some way. So in the example, the sample graphics I've provided here that were provided by KnowBe4, you can see the link paths are suspicious and do not go to legitimate Bank of America or US Small Business Administration pages, though they look like they are, right? They have the logo, and they have a nice little check-in box. But when you hover over the link, you can see that those links do not go actually to an SBA form or to a Bank of America link. So it's not only emails, we're also seeing voice phishing campaigns. So this is an advisory on August 20th of this year from FBI and CISA, warning businesses that cyber criminals are using a phishing campaign, which is voice phishing. So what they're doing is targeting new hires working remotely. Well, how do they find out that someone is a new hire? Well, we always post that on LinkedIn, don't we? So they're targeting new hires working remotely with a series of phone calls. And the criminals explain that they're the IT department and they're trying to help the new employee set up their virtual private network. And so they need the credentials for their VPN to help them set it up. And so the new hire submits their credentials, and then therefore, once they submit those credentials, the criminal has access to the workplace network. And so that is one alert that has recently been issued, and one example of not only email attacks, but then they're calling and trying to take advantage of confused employees just trying to work remotely. Employment scams. So this is also on the rise. So according to Pew Research, unemployment rose higher in 3 months of COVID-19 than it did in 2 years of the Great Recession. The COVID-19 outbreak and the economic downturn it engendered swelled the ranks of unemployed Americans by more than 14 million by more than 14 million, from 6.2 million in February to 20.5 million in May of 2020. So what we have then is mass unemployment combined with hiring freezes and the fact the majority of people are spending their time in lockdown on the internet has created an environment ripe for cyber criminals to take advantage of people who are online and eager to get back into the workplace. Now, in these moments of desperation, they're more likely to fall victim to a criminal's enticing offer. So FBI, Internet Complaint Crime Center, reported that victim losses due to employment scams between January and May of 2020 exceeded $25 million. Again, people who are unemployed are in many cases in a desperate situation, needing to provide support for their family and themselves. When crises hit and unemployment rises, so do employment scams. And these usually come in the form of fake websites, fake postings on job boards, phishing emails, etc. So I have a few more examples here for you, and then we'll get to what can you do. So we're all ordering a lot online these days. We're shopping because of the pandemic. We're also watching a lot of streaming television. So FedEx had to issue a warning through Twitter due to the rise in scams related to package deliveries. In variations on the scheme, fraudsters are also falsely invoking the names of UPS and the US Postal Service. According to the texts, there's a delivery that needs to be delivered. and you need to click on this link, or your package is delayed, or you need to verify some time of delivery. And then when you click on the link, it usually takes you to an Amazon form that you have to complete with your credentials or some sort of form. Or you're told that you've won a free prize. Just input a credit card number to cover the shipping and handling of that free prize. Over the first 3 weeks of March, the total estimated number of minutes streamed to TV was 400 billion, up 85% comparable to the 3-week period in 2019, according to Nielsen. Criminals know we're shopping online. They know we're spending more time watching TV. So this is an example of a text message that I received. I don't even have a Netflix account, but they're making an assumption, right? They're casting a wide net because they know so many people are using Netflix, and they're relying on triggering my emotion to click on that link. They want me to enter my credentials and look at that link, http://wn.netflix.tv and whatever's the island school. That is not a legitimate link, but they're relying on me not thinking and clicking on that link. Now, here are a few headlines just from the last few months. As I said, they prey upon charity, right, or your generosity. When disasters hit, cyber criminals are there to prey upon people's generosity. Criminals exploit disasters for their own gain by sending emails or creating websites saying they're a charity supporting the relief of a particular community or population, but are just siphoning off your generosity to fund their next exploit. So we see charity fraud particularly flourish during times of crisis. For instance, when a hurricane comes through, the wildfires or the fires going on in California, there are charity frauds that are tied to Black Lives Matter. And so every time there is a movement or an opportunity, cyber criminals could take advantage. So if you're in a position to donate, always check charities on Charity Navigator or GuideStar or Better Business Bureau's charity website. Never make a donation from an email or a social media post or message. After doing your research, go to the charity's direct website and donate there. So here's an example of criminals taking advantage of social unrest. For instance, in this phishing email, they're using the Black Lives Matter movement as a theme to trick people into downloading the Word document, which contains malicious software. Look at that address from the quote unquote state administration. It ends in XYZ. Clearly, that's not a legitimate domain. We also saw Minneapolis was hit with a distributed denial of service attack after the murder of George Floyd. So individuals can also create disruption of services during times of crisis through cyber attacks. Again, anytime there is an opportunity for criminals or individuals to take advantage of confusion in transition, fear, and any other emotion, they will. Now, I'm going to end with this. We haven't seen a zombie apocalypse yet, but I would not count it out for 2020. I'm sharing this graphic because it's an actual page on the CDC website. It's a campaign they launched in 2011 because, shockingly enough, people were not paying attention to disaster preparedness. And they thought this would get people's attention, and it did. It was a highly effective campaign, and their message was that there are disaster preparedness steps, regardless of the type of disaster, that we can all take. And from my experience in economic development prior to my tenure here, I know that disaster preparedness usually aren't topics that really get the blood flowing for businesses, right? It's access to leads, marketing techniques, all of that really gets the blood flowing for attendance at events. So I applaud you for being here and listening to this resilience-based topic here. So we have to take a moment when we're talking about tips on how we can remain resilient to talk about email security, because this is one of the primary ways criminals will take advantage of individuals and businesses during times of crisis. How many of you were trained on email security before being given access to your email at work? For leaders, how many of you train your employees on email security before giving them access to email? I can't see a show of hands, but my guess is not many. Now, we make the assumption that just because people know how to use email, that they understand how to use it securely. We assume that somewhere, someone along the line has taught them or trained them on email security basics. And to cover our butts or to meet compliance, at one point throughout the year, maybe we give them a required training. If 90% of cyber incidents begin with email, why are we not taking this more seriously? Particularly since an employee can cripple an organization with just one click. So some tips for individuals and organization. Train employees on email security before giving them access to email. For everyone, pause, think before you click, right? Pause if an email requests action. Consider the nature, the timing, the purpose, and the appropriateness of the request. And ask someone else if you're suspicious, right? Someone in the next cubicle or room or a manager, your information security team. Hover over links to verify the path, like I did in some of those examples that I showed earlier, to check that they're legitimate. Check the reply to email address to verify that this email is going to a legitimate source. And always reinforce email security best practices during times of crisis. Teach employees and family members about targeted scams to watch out for related to the crisis in particular. And let them know that these threats don't just come in the form of email, but text message and chat features as well, through ads on social media, through phone calls. So a few tips for consumers. So that everyone should own their role in protecting their information and securing their systems. Of course, be aware, understand that during moments of crisis, cyber criminals will be right there to take advantage of the situation. They are bottom feeders. They're going to take advantage of everyone. You should always be cautious when people request sensitive information, when you receive an unsolicited call, email, or text message, or a person in a physical person at your home or office. Be hyper vigilant during times of crisis. Now, some of the golden rules, of course, make a long, unique passphrase, right? Length trumps complexity with passphrases. And enable two-factor authentication on all of your devices and accounts. And if you are in the position to enforce it, require your employees to enable two-factor authentication on all of their work accounts in particular. Again, when in doubt, throw it out, right? All users must exercise utmost caution and restraint in the face of emotionally jarring emails in particular. And so I had mentioned that on the last slide. With Keep a Clean Machine, what we're trying to emphasize to all consumers and businesses is to keep the software on all of your internet-connected devices, including personal computers and smartphones and tablets, updated. Updated software not only improves the performance of your devices and software, but it improves the security as well. Now, with Share with Care, think before posting about yourself and others online, right? Cyber criminals go out to social media and they harvest your information and use that information to impersonate your family members, business partners. And so think critically about what information you are putting out there onto all these different social media accounts, whether it's in your profile or whether it's a post. And also think about your security questions. It is okay to lie on your security questions, right? One of the most famous security questions is, what's your mother's maiden name? Well, where can they find your mother's maiden name? On almost any social media platform. So think critically about that and change up how you respond to those questions. And lastly, we're not doing it a lot, but when you think about going out into the world, whether it's at a cafe or whether it's at an airport, limit what you do on public Wi-Fi and avoid logging on to sensitive accounts like your work accounts on public Wi-Fi. Use virtual private networks instead. Now, I'm close to wrapping up here, but of course, I want to share some insights for businesses. Have a crisis plan in place, right? Have you asked yourselves, what is the amount of downtime we as an organization can sustain? Oh, my phone's going off. There's a crisis right there. Sorry about that. What is the amount of downtime we as an organization can sustain if we lose access to our network, to our sensitive assets and systems? How would we continue providing service to customers and business partners? Would it be days, hours, weeks? Do we have manual processes we could turn to if we lose access to our network? What would be that plan? How would we continue? Who would be our partners in that plan? How would we continue operating our business? Also, create a technology toolkit for your employees. Don't leave it up to them to determine what technologies to use when they are not in the office, or even when they are in the office. They will get very creative. So have an approved set of technologies that employees can and should use when they are remotely working and when they're in the office. Next, plan for an increase in cyber threats during moments of crisis. As you've seen, cyber criminals are opportunistic and will align their phishing themes to current events. So train employees in particular on those threats and which threats might impact their specific role. Make sure you evaluate your insurance coverage before a crisis. Do you have cybersecurity insurance coverage? What is covered? What is not? And also adjust your security priorities. So in a crisis, an enterprise must focus on emergency response, right? And the safety and well-being of their employees and business partners. And cybersecurity priorities can receive less attention. That's understood. But in moments of crisis, you might need to scale back your security priorities. But whatever you do, do not push them aside completely, as criminals are hoping for that. Also, continue to reinforce secure behaviors for remote workers. Create training that is short and relevant. Deliver the right training at the right time for the right people. Now, with communication, it is important through all of this, communicate to employees how to report incidents or suspicious activity while they're not in the office. During moments of crisis, employees need to understand what is going on in the organization. And part of that communication should be focused on security in their new environment. Now, with empathy, I just like to say that understand your employees and colleagues and those they care about are stretched thin. They're confused, they're stressed, they're worried. For instance, during the pandemic, we saw already overworked and under-resourced IT departments and information security departments bombarded with requests. On the flip side, we have to understand as business leaders that employees are dealing with difficult situations, and so have empathy through these transitions and moments of crisis. And of course, once you're through these moments of crisis, document these lessons learned and update your resilience plans. So when I get out my crystal ball as we wrap up, I've seen quite a few predictions that are warning businesses to be mindful of cyber threats as they're coming up. And one of them that I want to focus on is just be mindful that the holiday season is upon us. With so many businesses now using e-commerce platforms and mobile payment solutions, and customers are doing more shopping online, criminals are going to increasingly target both merchants and consumers this holiday season in particular, since more shopping will be done online. So what steps are you taking if you're a shopper or a merchant to not fall victim to cyber criminals this holiday season? How are you building that into your resiliency plan? So I end with this slide. The concept of resilience is that of rebounding, of getting back on your feet after misfortune. And so we will never eliminate risk to our personal lives or to our organizations, but we do each have a role to play in minimizing those risks. And so you can educate your employees with a lot of the resources that the National Cybersecurity Alliance has. You will have access to these slides access to these slides so you can access these links. These are from the National Cybersecurity Alliance. We have videos. We have a COVID security resource library with a lot of resources on telework. The federal government has a lot of great resources that you can take advantage of as well. And so with that, I'm at my 30-minute mark, but I just want to say, happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month this October. I hope you get involved, and you are more than welcome to reach out to me directly. My contact information is on the slide. And of course, you can reach out to the National Cybersecurity Alliance as well.